brothers and sisters who have gathered here. Today I have a great pleasure in joining you as one among you all, because I am in the presence of many astrologers and those who are the predictors who have predicted many things, and those who have made prophecies about the nations and the world. And more than that, I am happy here that I am in the midst of many healers of the day. And particularly, I feel the day eventful because this is the day when I met the founder of the Creative Teaching Ministry, Sri Robin Lass, and I take this opportunity to join all your minds into one symphony and harmony, to have the idea of healing mankind in all its aspects. Because in the present age, what humanity requires is healing more than anything, on the physical sense, on the mental sense, on the psychological plane and the plane of the senses, plane of emotions and the plane of intellect, and about the plane of the faculty of analysis, which lacks much synthesis. So the very purpose of astrology has been for times immemorial. It was the benefit of mankind, which we call healing nowadays. The word healing in the modern age is too comprehensive a term to be restricted to any particular medical sense. What was considered to be Vishwashreya in India in the Sanskrit language, and what was said to be the meaning of the word altruism, and what is said to be the meaning of the human welfare, the word goodwill. The concepts, all these things put together come under the word healing. And astrology, of course, it is high time to discuss if astrology was scientific or not, because it is an age-old subject whose validity is proved through centuries and across the nations. But always there is a discussion and there will be doubters in every aspect, and some subjects, because of their strange nature, are always subject to discussion. For example, healing. The medical doctor doubts the faculties of healing when he finds cure on the material plane only. Doubts. Similarly, the question of the omnipresence of God is doubted from the very beginning of the creation of man to the total merging of the mankind into the background once again. These subjects are always subject to discussion because the human mind requires a certain stature to understand the truth of these subjects. So, let us take it for granted that astrology is an age-old, tested and verified science. And when we go into the way in which the real use of astrology was estimated by the ancients, was not curiosity. It was not to know that everything in this world is fateful. It was not to recognize that it is written there that everything should happen like this. Had it been true, we would not have discovered so many things in the modern world. When man discovers the science of medicine and the various steps therein, And when man discovers the science and the art of commerce and commercial way of living, the economics and the various subjects like that, it doesn't mean that man believes that everything in his life is fateful. The moment man makes sure that everything in his life is fateful, he stops to progress towards any subject that is to be discovered. But the principle of life seems to be a little more comprehensive than what we think. Life is ever expanding, and living beings are always living on hope of living on this earth. If we remove hope from the minds of the living beings, there is nothing for us to live on this earth. It is not the riches of the world that are making us live. It is not the food or the drink or the sex or the enjoyment we make that is making us live. All these aspects and the facets of enjoyment have only one meaning. That is an incessant search for something which we call happiness. And that concept of happiness remains as hope until the end of life. And this is the hope which leads us forward to discover many things. And it is this hope that makes man a little bit different from the other living being, fauna and flora of this earth. Even the animals and plants live on hope if we observe carefully. If we kill a plant, the hope of the plant is in its seed. So plant lives in hope of the seed, whether we fancy that the plant knows or not. We may doubt that the plant doesn't know it. Sometimes we are sure that the plant doesn't know it, because the human beings are foolishly sure that the plant has no mind. Still, plant lives on its hope, which we call its seed. The animal lives by its own way of reproduction. And the human animal also lives in the same way, though it claims a higher life. And we think, if we observe nature intricately and more carefully, we understand that what is leading our life towards a progress is hope and nothing else. If this hope were to be taken from our minds, we stand on this earth as walking skeletons. So, if astrology were to be the science which indicates that everything is sealed as fate, we can be sure that astrology kills all hope. Because when true astrology is properly known by every one of us, we can know what becomes every day to us, and we will be able to know how our story, individual story, ends. When we know the whole story, we refuse to read a novel once again, you know it. In the same way, if we know everything detailed about our own life until we die, as sure as anything, we refuse to continue our life. But truth is not like that. We see the sheep when it is being led to the butchery room. Though one sheep is seeing the other being slaughtered, it stretches its neck towards grass when it is shown hopefully. It is the property of life. Whether it be the human being or the sheep, the behavior is the same. We can't boast that we are philosophers or politicians and scholars, therefore we don't feel that we have to die. We can't boast that we are free from the appetites. And no one can boast that he is not free from his bondage and binding with his physical body. Life exists at first as its binding with the physical body. So it is very painful when it is being removed from the physical body, let it be to a plant or an animal and a human animal. So what astrology teaches us is something more than what we call fate. Some people may think that astrology is meant for predicting everything in our life or others' lives. We go on predicting horoscopes. And from the beginning of the creation till today, millions and millions of astrologers of all countries have predicted many things to the people. Sure as anything, every astrologer failed in some predictions and succeeded in some predictions. If any astrologer were to be here to say that he has never failed in his prediction, we are ready here to become his disciples and learn the subject. But that never proves that astrology is defective. The fact that patients are dying in spite of the doctors never proves that medical science is false. We should understand that the principle of life has not yet been understood by any branch of science or art on the face of earth till now. However great we are in our own branch of knowledge, we are expected to approach the principle of life in everyone with great veneration and try to understand life more and more, and there will be no end to that understanding. Because the one who is understanding is only a living being. A living being trying to understand life is nothing but a part trying to understand the total. So it is highly illuminative and always progressive but never ending. But it is never ending, it never ends or culminates in its true perfection. But for everything, there should be a motive which makes the subject live for so many thousands of years. If we enter into the thought of the ancient astrologers of the various nations and try to know the pious motive that made astrology live for so many thousands of years, we understand that many times we are mistaken about our impressions of astrology, because it aims at knowing the true nature of life more intricately. Astronomy shows us how the earth goes round itself and how the earth goes round the sun, how the planets go round the sun, how the interplanetary distances and speeds exist to each other. This is an exact science which we can call the skeleton of the subject. But since every skeleton is to be galvanized into life by flesh and blood, astronomy should be known for its significance or meaning. The meaning and significance of astronomy is astrology and nothing else. An astronomer can explain you to the utmost precision how the rotation of the earth goes on. But at the same time, why it goes like that cannot be explained by an astronomer. Unless he aspects that the earth is a living being, the science can never be complete or perfect. Just as the generator of electricity is assembled into a particular way, then makes manifest what we call the electric current. Similarly, the various parts of the earth globe, when they are assembled into the earth globe, by the various intelligences who made the earth globe, it made the electric current manifest around the earth. And it is what we call life. So the biological kingdom started its career with this life principle, and this principle should be properly understood and it is done only when astrology is properly understood. When we try to understand how the various minerals in this earth with their atoms make a synthesis to form the tissues of the body, how the various states of matter like liquids and solids and gases make up the components of the living beings, the bodies, how the sun's ray
comment les rayons du soleil
interacts with the combinations to serve as the indweller of all these living beings, and to speak to you, hello, I am here, through these vehicles which we call bodies. This story is to be properly understood in its true light. It requires not only accuracy and precision of observation, but it also requires a maturity. It's not the maturity of thought or mind, but it is the maturity which we call the maturity of the human evolution. Only when we reach a particular stage on the evolution of the human comprehension, we will be able to appreciate and accept the validity of subjects like astrology. So,
ainsi
we understand the background idea given by the ancient astrologers about the use of astrology. The ancient Indian astrologers say that it is like the light in your room. What light is to your room, astrology is to your life and span. And the light in your room neither adds nor takes off anything of your wealth that exists in your room, but it shows you what is there in store for you and how to make use of it in proper time, and how not to stumble over it and fall down again and again in the darkness of the future. So this is one of the objects of astrology. Know that everything in your future is arranged. So it can be predicted. It can be predicted that there will be a sunrise tomorrow, and it can be predicted that the next season in the tropical countries will be having so much of average temperature. It can be predicted that 15 days from now there will be no moon at all, because today we have the full moon. Experience makes us visualize the science of astrology, some of its aspects. And now we go into the more subtler aspects of it. When you begin to observe your own mind, you see some days you feel happy with the world and some days you feel unhappy. You will discover that the world is very good some days, and you meet your social activities with great zeal and enthusiasm. And some days you will be fatigued to meet the same aspects of your life. For some years, there are individuals whom you think very good. The same persons will be considered as rogues or fools after some years by the same mind of yours. A closer observation of these modulations of one's own mind and the mind of others make us understand that there is something that is making these modulations. If we claim our mind completely, the modulations cannot exist without our own intervention or our own mastery. But in spite of us, the modulations of our mind exist. Many times they exist without our own comprehension of them. So when people searched for a reason, they saw that on certain days when the moon is going on in certain signs on the sky, some people observed that when the moon is traveling over certain arcs in the space, his mind is happy, enthusiastic. And when the moon is going in certain other portions of the sky, he finds everything boring, unenthusiastic. And again he observes his mind during full moons and new moons. He finds a periodicity of the modulations with the full moons and the new moons. A doctor who is sensitive to other things in the world than his own medical subject observes that there are modulations in the increase and decrease of the disease in his patients. He observes that they have nothing to do with his medicine or his great knowledge of the medical science. The same medicine ameliorates wonderfully during some days, and the same medicine does not ameliorate the same patient on certain days. He understands that he has to wait for 24 hours before the medicine acts upon the patient. And now he has to discover some other aspects to maintain the patient before the medicine begins to act. It may be blessing, it may be prayer, it may be hypnotism. Just now the medical science is entering into the infant stage of hypnotism, and it is still in the infant stage, and we hope that the medical science can grow along with a better knowledge of hypnotism day by day. To do it, the medical people should not be having the mentality to possess the subject into their own subject. Similarly, the subjects astrology and palmistry will be found more useful in the medical science, and the subject of healing is more comprehensive than the present known medical science. For example, when a doctor knows that a medicine takes more hours for a patient to act, he makes a beginning of his treatment 2 days earlier. Then he will be in advantage of starting the treatment when the period is favorable to the patient, when the magnetism of the constitution is ready to welcome the vibrations of the medicine into his constitution. A doctor will be able to estimate these things if he knows that there exists a science like astrology. So knowing something more and keeping one step ahead causes more and more perfection in the attempt of man. This is the one aspect which the ancients aspired about astrology. And also they said, you will know yourself better through astrology than through any other subject. Just as psychology is a subject which makes you know about the workings of the human mind, astrology is a subject which makes you understand about your tendencies more deeply. Heredity and tendencies are not to be properly explained by any subject than astrology. The various aspects of behavior can be explained by psychology, but the reason why a particular person behaves in such a way cannot be explained by psychology. It is the field of astrology to understand how a particular person will be stimulated into his tendencies. There are some children who, even in the absence of any guidance of the parents or the proper guidance of a good teacher in life, in the absence of any type of guidance, as they grow up in age, they begin to know their responsibilities and begin to behave in the proper manner and find themselves most fitting in the society in which they live. At the same time, we find children who are brought up by parents very carefully and meticulously, and who are entrusted to many expert teachers to take care night and day. And in the